now. Man band. You didn't happen to sweep up on the way in and out.
Mayor Cook?
Here.
Mr. Engel?
Yeah, here.
Mr. Kozar?
Here.
Mr. Westbrook?
Here.
Okay, this evening we have a public hearing regarding a proposed construction of an oversized shed at 8878 Shepherd Road. Is Ryan here? Hi Ryan, come on down. All right, you can maybe give us a brief description of what you're doing, and then we'll ask if anybody has any comments. So,
I was given a shed by my uncle. It's way too small for him. He's a bigger one constructed, so he said I could have it. So I started to move it to my house. So I have quite a bit of maintenance to do every year. Picked the spot for it. It's currently 12 by 20, but the way it's constructed, it's in 4-foot sections, so it's 12 by 16. It's going to be planted just behind, backside of my house. Just looking at trees. I went and measured tonight. It's seeing 44 feet to the closest property line. I had written 40 in here. It's actually measured it as I go through 20 feet of brush, so 44 and maybe 45. But, I have a lawnmower. I have a 160-foot driveway. There's snow from, so.
yes.
And the reason I picked the spot for it is because to get the snow removal equipment to the driveway, if the shed's, I mean, in the backyard, I don't know how I'd get it through the snow if the whole yard was covered with snow, so that's why I chose the place I did.
Okay, smart thinking, huh? Look at it that way rather than after it snows. And
Yeah, I'll get it back there.
all right. Well, that's a brief description about how big it is, where it's going to be, visibility-wise, behind some trees. Do we have anyone here to address this item this evening? Well, I think what we're going to do is ask for a motion to adjourn, since we don't have anybody here and the timing's right. It's 20 after. And then we'll reconvene to have our meeting in 10 minutes. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, have a seat, or I don't know where you're at. Chance to let me know.
First one.
First anyway.
Your first one, then. All right, we have to wait till 5:30, so back in the old days, they would say smoke if you got them, but today hardly anybody smokes anymore. So have a break. We'll see you later. Okay. Have anybody left yet? Talk to Kevin. Our clock on the wall, so let's get this in motion. Let me call this meeting to order. Today is September 21st, 2015. I'm showing 5:38 p.m. And here she comes again. All set, Jenna?
Yep.
Could you please do a roll call?
Mayor Cook?
Here.
Mr. Engel?
Here.
Mr. Kozar?
Here.
Mr. Westbrook?
Here.
We have some minutes, starting with the February 9th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to accept? Do I have any changes, or would you like to adopt?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nobody has to abstain. That's good. March 16th, 2015 Planning meeting minutes.
Mr. Kozar was absent for that meeting.
All right, we have a quorum here. Do I have a motion to accept?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Moving on. Brian, we missed you. Come on back up. Proposed construction of an oversized shed, which Brian has explained a little bit. his review. You have a copy of that? No. Okay. Could you please do that for us, Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My memo dated September 17th regarding an oversized storage shed, 8878 Shepherd Road. The applicant is proposing to construct a 12 by 16 or 192 square foot storage shed on his property. The shed's proposed to be located adjacent to the existing residence on the garage side and about a foot or so just behind the house and to the rear of the property. And the property itself is about 1.77 acres in area. The code states in section 1163.02H3 that any storage shed exceeding 144 square feet is not permitted without an exception, which is permissible in 1163.02I of the code, and that exception being for lots larger than an acre or lots larger than 3 acres. It has criteria set forth to which a shed or a detached garage would have to follow. In this case, the provision for a lot larger than an acre would prevail, and in such case, the shed cannot be in the front or side yards. It has to be in the rear yard, but it can exceed the 144 square feet with planning commission approval. The only concern I had when looking at the applicant's mock-up of an aerial photograph is the 40 feet, as he noted during the public hearing. He said it's more to about 44 feet roughly. The code is somewhat silent on, specifically on lots of an acre, but with regards to lots that are 3 acres, it's a 50-foot side yard setback. And I think that's the reasonable standard to follow in this case. As such, the applicant would just need to move it over slightly. It sounds like maybe about 6 feet. And the aerial photograph that he mocked up shows there's 12 feet in between his garage and where he was placing the shed. So he just moved it over whatever amounts to be about 6 feet. He'd still have 6 feet left between his house and the shed wall and would be code compliant, provided it stays in the rear yard of the property. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Are you all right with that?
My only thing is there's a couple of reasons I have it exactly where I do. There's a, you can't see it, but from the driveway, around the side of the house, and all across, or around the side of the garage, and around the back, there's a sidewalk, which you know the distance, but it's about 8 feet. I think the sidewalk is about 8 feet from the edge of the house, so I really have only about 4 feet to play with. I also have a pear tree just to the back, so we're not to lose. There's also a sewer cleanout just to the side. And also the way, as soon as you get to the edge of the sidewalk, the grading from the house is at a fairly severe angle, which levels out a lot more after the 12 feet that I have. This is the distance from the house.
Sure.
I mean, it seems like it's, we're 178 feet back. It looks like there's lots of vegetation along the side yard. You know, can we approve it as at the current location?
We don't need a variance, so.
I think as long as it stays in the rear yard and definitely not in the side yard, the planning commission can make that exception.
Oh, it sure sounds
I would
like
be
Ryan.
okay, yeah, that's.
What?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the plan as submitted.
All right, we might have some more comments on it. Let me get that first.
The only comment I had is we've had several sheds on lots that were less than an acre come to BZA within the last year, and they have made the stipulation that, okay, if you're going to be an oversized shed, you're going to have one accessory shed in the backyard.
Sounds like a
Okay,
good
and you
idea.
might wish to make that stipulation with this amendment, but that's up to you.
How about if we just do this and then we'll follow up with a separate motion? motion on the floor to accept this.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Do you have a second?
I can't if unless you want to amend it or something.
Well, I'll add the stipulation that, to my motion, that there only be one accessory shed. You probably don't, you're not planning on putting another shed, right? Don't want to work that hard, do you? Okay, with that, I'd add that to my motion.
I'll second that.
We have motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Sounds like you got it well done. Yeah. Good luck. Hope it works out. All right, next on the agenda will be sign placement for Gordon Food Services. All right, come on down.
All right.
Are you Mike?
No, I'm not. I'm just Rob. See who moves the signs is this.
Okay. All right, we have some comments from our planner first, so let's go over that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The proposal is to erect 2 replacement signs. They're both the same size, roughly 4 foot by 12.5 foot, or just under 49 square feet per sign. And then there is a sign, an existing sign on the east building facade that's proposed to be eliminated. So we'll be looking at 3 currently, and if approved, there'll be 2, with that 1 being eliminated. Presumably this is a corporate re-imaging, and so that's why they're doing this, making this change. Regarding the total area being proposed, they're well under what's permissible by the code, sitting at just under 100 square feet. They meet the criteria for Alexandria Square, which they have separate sign criteria, and they do meet all those requirements with one exception, and that is the criteria does require that the sign faces be red with the raceway color to match the background, and that, however, there is a second color that's permissible in the criteria. This sign incorporates red and gray letters, so that is a deviation from the plan, but it is something the commission finds acceptable. They can approve that. And just to note, the planning commission did approve a deviation or an exception to the color on this existing sign. So it seems reasonable, and the color doesn't seem particularly outlandish, that the red and gray would be acceptable. Seems certainly appropriate, given that we're all Buckeye fans. It seems
There
like
you
we can
go.
approve that.
This guy was from Michigan.
Yeah, yes, we are. Anything from you, Dennis?
No comment.
How about from engineering? All right, so we have it all. Any questions, comments from the commission?
Size is okay, anything else? Okay with that. Just make a motion to approve with the red and gray colors, which gray would be an extra color.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? There you go. You're on your way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next on the
Blue
agenda.
and gold picture.
There you go.
I'm Michigan. I graduated from Michigan State, so.
Oh, my.
Oh, well, that,
Green's worse. I don't
I'm
know.
not sure that's any better.
It is. Green's worse. Well, I'm glad you approved it for it, so. You're lucky.
He's running.
All right, that's another victory for us. All right, next will be proposed parcel consolidation split at 9532 North Benton.
It's 9523. Well, it could be 32. And house address is 23.
Okay. Note that, please. All right, Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an interesting lot splitting consolidation. When I first looked at it, I was a little surprised how it comes up there. The parcels are tied together uniquely. So the applicant is proposing to do some consolidation of two properties, and that's and it's labeled on the lot split consolidation plat as being the north part. And there's two existing parcels there, and that's parcels 3302660 and 3301348. Those two parcels, as they sit, the back piece is actually non-conforming. It has no frontage. It's landlocked, if you will. They're proposed to be consolidated. And then the remaining property where the house is located is then going to be subdivided adjacent to the existing house. It appears to be somewhat of a large field, if you will, and that's proposed to be subdivided off, presumably to create a development lot, and then maintain just under an acre for the existing house. So taking a look at this property, these properties are zoned R1 Residence District, and taking a look at the requirements, in my opinion, they meet all the zoning requirements from the perspective of lot area, lot width and such. And actually, if the Planning Commission approves this, it would eliminate the non-conformity of the landlocked parcel to the north. So in my opinion, the proposal can be approved as submitted.
Thank you, Brian. Anything, Dennis?
Nothing from me, no.
Engineer?
The current parcel 3302660 is bisected by property owner Dolores J. Robertson. The application proposes to split the north and south portion into separate parcels. The plan also proposes to consolidate the northern portion of the split parcel with the existing landlocked parcel 3301348. Engineering has reviewed the proposed plat as well as the accompanying legal descriptions and recommends approval by the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Anything from the Planning Commissioners? Questions, comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. For further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All done.
Okay, so then now who signs this, or how do I sign?
You go to the building department, where do we approve it? Yes.
Okay.
And that'll be a signed plan that we're passing around now, so.
Okay, and then I can get that at the building department tomorrow?
Sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next is a proposed fence in the front yard at 8660 Shepherd Road. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. All right, we're going to start off this evening with comments from our planner, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My memo dated September 16th regarding a front yard fence. The applicant is proposing to erect a 42-inch tall dog ear fence. It's a cedar fence in their front yard of the property located again at 8660 Shepherd. That 42-inch tall fence will transition into a 6-foot tall dog ear fence from the front face of the existing house to the rear property line. And that's a code requirement. Anything in the front yard or front beyond the front face of the house has to be 42 inches tall. Section 1171.16 of the code does regulate fencing, and it states that any fence 42 inches tall is considered ornamental and is permitted in the front yard. Anything greater than 20 feet in length, however, does require Planning Commission approval, and that's why the applicant is here this evening. And so it gives you some criteria or some factors to take a look at regarding scale and harmony and adverse impact on the neighborhood. And honestly, I think the fence will fit in just fine. 42 inches tall doesn't appear as though it's going to create any sort of negative impact on the surrounding property owners. And it certainly doesn't seem to create any type of visual obstruction to the adjacent roadway. The only additional comment I had was that the code does require advice and recommendation from the city architect, and this is presumably regarding the fence style. So with that said, the city architect would have to weigh in, but I see no reason to not approve the fence at this time.
Thank you, Brian, which led to a.
Yeah, picket fences are an acceptable ornamental fence in a front yard, so it would be approved under the code.
All right,
It's an approved
our
fence.
city architect has anything from engineers?
Proposed fence location shall be in accordance with the provided map of survey boundary.
All right, questions, comments from the commission?
So is the fence being on the property line or is it
Yes, and it's right on, it'll be right on the property line. There was a boundary survey.
there's approval of the other property?
With the, well, according to your information, it said that as long as there is a survey done, a land survey or boundary survey, that additional approval wasn't needed.
Because that's where the problem is.
Right.
2 foot is just to make sure you didn't screw up and put it actually on there. You figure you
Right.
within 2 feet, get it right, I guess. The survey.
Good with that? All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Motion and a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All
Thank
right.
you.
Sure, thank you. Bye-bye.
Purple will be 15 minutes.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda, proposed site plan improvements at Highland Point Parkway. Hi.
Would be okay to talk a minute there?
Please. Sure. Absolutely. All right, first we have some comments from Brian. Brian, are you in good voice?
I am, Mr. Mayor, I hope.
You've got some comments.
All right. Is this working better? Okay. Excellent. Okay, I'll speak more clearly into this microphone. My memo dated September 17th regarding Vista Springs signage and fencing.
Wrong one.
Oh,
Back up one.
where am
Or two. We're on proposed site improvements, Highland Point.
I? Okay.
That's the one that's about 6 pages long.
Yep, I do have that one.
All right.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm in much better voice now. So regarding 8020 Highland Point Parkway site improvements, the applicant is proposing a number of site improvements. They own 2 lots located off of Highland Point Parkway. The main lot, 8020 Highland Point, contains an existing office building with multiple outbuildings for salt storage. The second lot immediately to the north, and that's parcel number 11728, is vacant, but under the same ownership. The applicant's proposing these improvements substantially to that vacant lot. The property is zoned limited industrial, and I reviewed a fairly conceptual site plan, date stamped September 3rd, 2015. And so I have some general comments for the applicant to take into consideration and the Planning Commission. So I numbered them 1 through 5, and I can go through those. Regarding the buildings, again, several new buildings are proposed on the vacant lot. It appears as though more temporary salt storage buildings, hoop-type structures, are proposed to the rear of the lot. A storage building is proposed near the front of the lot, kind of roughly in the middle of it. And then there's a scale house toward the middle of the lot, and surrounding the scale house are concrete barriers with weigh scales on either side of an oval turnaround drive. Presumably this is some type of transfer area or weigh area for their salt that's coming in or leaving the site and associated with their business. Taking a look at it, I had some concerns about the side yard setbacks from the, even though they're common ownership, but from the property lines. My next comments regarding parking. Some new parking is being proposed, and it's being proposed by expanding the existing parking lot and constructing 25 new spaces, and that'd be in front of the building, the existing building, on the main lot. And in lighting and landscaping, the proposed paving, particularly on the north lot, will eliminate nearly all the existing green space on the property. A landscape strip is being left along the north side of the vacant lot, and a landscape barrier, both in the front and the back, are proposed adjacent, in the front adjacent to the proposed driveway along the side of the vacant lot. In the back, it's proposed along the school property boundary. Some conceptual details are provided for the landscape barrier, but in my opinion, more information is needed. Like many of our other non-residential development plans and additions, the Planning Commission receives a detailed landscape plan, typically provided for that final plan approval. It illustrates how the landscape areas are being treated, including the type of landscaping, spacing, all the good details about landscaping. And then I noted per section 1171.11E2 and 4, off-street parking can be located in the front and side yards, which it is existing now, but being expanded, provided it's properly screened with landscaping and approved by the Planning Commission. Regarding lighting, there is no lighting right now. There may not be. If there is, those details should be submitted on a final plan approval, showing the foot candle strengths at the property lines associated with any type of lighting, and then cut sheets with the type of lighting being proposed. So those really are sort of, relatively minor issues. The bigger concern I have is really regarding the driveways. There's 2 new driveways being proposed for the vacant parcel, approximately 50 feet apart. The driveway located on the northern property line of the vacant parcel overlaps the driveway to the parcel to the immediate north. At least it shows that on the site plan. In general, I'm concerned with the number and the location of the driveways. There's some coordination that could be given with the driveways across the street, because it looks like in both cases there's not a huge volume of traffic right now on that road, but there is something proposed at the end of the road that may be a traffic generator, and just turning conflicts and turning movements may be something to take a look at with the driveway alignment. Now, you could achieve the same or similar result of having a U-shape or a turnaround with only one driveway access in the middle of the property, but that storage building is proposed. So some details about that storage building and what that's going to look like and what that is and the purpose of that would be necessary also for a final approval. So that's something for the Planning Commission, I think, to consider and at least discuss with the applicant. I have a few miscellaneous comments. Given the large amount of new impervious surface, stormwater calculations, SWIP plan, because it's impacting more than 1 acre in area. All those things will be required for a final approval from the engineering department. Also, of some concern would be generating or determining what the lot coverage would be post-construction, what that percentage is, and making sure it's compliant with the code. One possibility, and I think something that should be strongly considered, would be to combine the 2 lots into a single ownership lot, eliminate any parcel lines that bisect through the improvements, and that would likely help out too with percent of lot coverage. And I think the engineer may have recommended that same approach. So with that said, while it seems like a lot, this is pretty conceptual at this point, and a good opportunity for the applicant to work with the commission to understand the project and flesh out more of these details into a final plan. Again, taking some consideration into the driveway location and how they interact with the surrounding properties, adjacent properties, and then the combination of those two lots into a single ownership lot. If the commission concurs with this direction, then I think the conceptual approval could be provided after discussion with the applicant.
Thank you, Brian. Dennis,
Nothing for me.
engineering.
A full engineering submittal will need to be provided prior to issuance of engineering approval. Submittal shall comply with CO 113705 for site plans and CO 923 for erosion and sediment control and post-construction stormwater quality. An LTMA and permanent easement will be required for the proposed stormwater management facility. The applicant must submit a stormwater report identifying the impacts of the proposed development on the existing detention pond. Stormwater design shall be in accordance with the latest edition of the Summit County Engineers Stormwater Management Manual. Parcels 3311728 and 3311729 should be consolidated.
All right, any questions, comments from the commissioners? Stormwater is a big issue because of federal court ruling that's fairly fresh. Macedonia will be paying stormwater fees according to the number of ERUs to the NEORC, which stands for Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. So impervious surfaces can cost you a lot of money. What can you do? Well, there's pavement today that you can use that is more conducive to being less impervious. But this is going to be a big deal, the number of ERUs generated by a property that's almost all covered when there's no green space. So that's why stormwater is a big deal with the engineer. Now we're really under the gun and we're trying to protect you from having to spend a ton of money every year. You pay that stormwater fee on every water that you pay. And if you don't pay the stormwater fee, they shut off your water. So it's not a good thing. I'm not endorsing it by any means, but it's something that you should be aware of. And that's why we have such concerns.
Could I ask a couple questions? I'm not familiar with that code at all. Based on the amount of square footage of parking lot proposing, or how much water the company uses?
Yeah, and impervious surfaces like this table. So your roads, your pavement, all of that is impervious surface. They even, there's a lot of things being done. Our new stadium is a good example of something that was done with impervious surfaces being kept to a minimum in mind. They have a lot of the porous pavement that can be used for parking and so forth and so on, and it cuts that to a minimum. And that's unfortunate that schools are having to pay stormwater fees. But they are. The only ones that don't pay are the city. Churches pay, schools pay, everybody pays. And everybody will be paying a lot, depending on the size of the impervious surface. So if you keep that to a minimum and you use whatever's necessary, you want to do a lot in the way of retention. You're talking about making some effect on the retention basin that's there. You don't want to do that because then that'll cost you more money. So if there's ways that you can enhance it, that would be more positive. They look at all those things when they determine what you're going to be paying. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Can you guys just kind of explain what's going on with the site, what you're doing?
So basically, so this is Chris Lee, and we're working with Norm, and he's been a business owner in the community for 12 years-ish, and kind of has outgrown his facility. And so he came to us a couple months ago and said he was trying to increase the protection of the salt. It's become a commodity. I'm sure you guys know what it costs you yearly and how it's being controlled, business like his, you need to be able to protect the product, it's your asset, and control it much cleaner. And kind of this whole concept, and that's really what we're here tonight to do, is talk about the conceptual approval before we would go to final design drawings, is to talk about truck routing through his property. And we brought a couple of truck exhibits for you based upon when we got Brian's email, just to kind of help you understand how it would work. And really what the idea is that currently now the trucks come in through the southern drive to the one facility. They're not weighed after they left the plant. They're not checked in. There's no tear weight in, tear weight out. And really what he's trying to accomplish is a separate ingress, egress for the trucks as they come in, and really two separate companies kind of separated by the blue and the red. So this new facility expansion to the northern property, the trucks would enter the northern driveway. They would come in through the first scale. Now, if the trucks are loaded, they would be checked again from when they left the downtown mines. They would be reweighed. They would dump into these storage facilities here. The trucks then would circle around and be reweighed empty, and then they would leave the property through the middle driveway that's proposed. The arrows are numbered. So really the idea is that there'd be one scale to start and then expand into two scales in the future. If the trucks aren't coming in and picking up salt out of this facility, they would come in empty through the northern gate. They would get their tear weight. They would be loaded. They would come back around on the inside loop. That's why those barriers are there. They would be reweighed, loaded, and then they would exit through the middle driveway. The blue would represent how he would weigh the trucks coming in through his existing facility. They would come in the southern drive, come through the facility and either dump, or they would be loaded, come through with a tear weight, and then leave again through the middle driveway. It's really hard to believe, but like anything, the commodities become important to track, not only when it leaves the mine, but then real time what's on the ground of what he has, and then make sure that everything that leaves and comes is accountable for at both ends. It's really a check and balance. This really is a state-of-the-art facility relative to tracking it. It would be all tagged. The trucks would be tagged with RFIDs, and they come in, and it's really tracking and accountability.
Well, it's very impressive. It is. There's a lot of thought went into this. And I can recognize that. I'm sure we all can just by looking at it. And I appreciate that, because what you're trying to do is keep traffic flowing. And around Macedonia, that's always been a challenge. So here you're doing it on your lot in a way that absolutely commands accountability. It's good stuff.
The other thing we brought, which was just some existing pictures of kind of the existing buffers. There's not a lot of vegetation left out there, but what's left we try to keep. So that northern boundary, that property line is fairly vegetated, and we didn't not want to impact it. And then the same problem we have, I guess, along the western property that backs up. We're going to enhance the backside of the salt dome, so you really won't see it based upon the grading, but what's there we don't want to disturb either. So the middle part, the part that we're disturbing, is fairly starting and pretty much cleared, mostly stone and some aggregate. But the center of this area here, our intent is to leave it gravel, and it would act as an impervious area in addition to the area just in front of the domes here. So between the front, the side yard, the rear yard, and this middle part, we got a decent amount on the proposed parcel of impervious area, because truthfully what you said is right, the tax would be pretty impacted to have that all our service.
Month after month. And the part that really hurts is all of that goes to Cuyahoga. That's like motion. Anybody else, any comments, questions?
Were you planning to combine the parcels?
If I can answer that, that would make this project much more difficult as far as financing. Round numbers right now, looking at 500,000 for just pavement plus the building, so another 500. Well, an hour before I walked in, this is the first time I heard about the combining the parcel. The answer to it is I don't know if I can do it. I physically can do it, it's just $1,500, I think is the number. But to make the financing work, I don't know if I can do that. I can look more than happy to look into it, but that might be.
What's the advantage?
Well, I think you have the temporary salt storage hoop structures in the back there. You know, they technically have to meet setback requirements. And so I don't know where exactly they'll fall within that grid, if they meet the setback to this property line, that common ownership line.
So does Macedonia require a setback to yourself if you have a common ownership?
It's just to a property line, doesn't matter about who owns it.
So, so we would meet side yard to ourselves. The rear would be 50 max, which we meet because there's a drainage easement that runs through there. I think we'd be to the south, we would have left the retention structure, so I think we'd be okay there. I'm not sure if the front meets it.
Well, this is where we're at. Today you're here for conceptually.
That's all.
All right, and so let's address that conceptually. Does anybody have any problems with it conceptually, knowing that you will come back with final figures, final plans? So this is conceptually today. Yes.
But can I give a variance to myself? Because let's say, for example, I can't get the financing done.
Yeah, could you give that variance to yourself? You mean allow it as a check?
Well, could I ask the city of Macedonia for a variance?
Oh,
This board.
oh, I see. No, not us. All that comes from through the BZA, which you have to pay to go to the BZA. So there's a couple of different options. Yes, you could do that. And very easily the BZA could say, oh, don't worry about it. I mean, that could very easily happen, and then you're done. You have a ruling from the city as far as the zone and the restrictions. But again, conceptually, I mean, this looks like a real well thought out, good plan to me. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
Are you planning to increase your business? Is that, just curious?
The goal is in 10 years to be able to double it. And we brought some calculation of what, as far back as I can go for you, as far as what kind of contributions we've made to the investment. Contributions we've made.
Well, you just caught our attention real much.
And we have no tax abatements, we're not asking for tax abatement. I think it would honestly fit very clean on the street, naturally testing.
Some of the things that were brought up here, the 5 items. Do you want to address some of those a little bit as far as?
I think that makes sense. You know, if we want to just go down, like under section 1 for the buildings, as far as the, our intent was to show you what we want to do. All the buildings on the site that would be constructed would go through the building department with full architecture. The hoop structures, I mean, they're pretty straightforward. I thought it would be part of the engineering submittal, but we could submit to the building department also. And these future scale house, same thing. Initially, I think it would be controlled back at the existing building to the south, and then long term there'd be a building or some type of manned operation there or unmanned operation. So I thought building, with respect to the building portion, all that would go through final architecture and be submitted like a regular code. Relative to the parking, the the existing parking added into the east of the parking that's there, plus the additional parking in the north. It does sit right at the building setback line of 20 feet. As far as the screening goes, there's no screening currently in that location, and we thought that we would do more of an enhanced landscape area towards the front, or in the middle entrance drive there. And I guess that would be part of our landscape plan, which would be submitted, which kind of leads you into number 3.
Yeah, the existing parking lot, all the cars, I mean, basically, it was drive-in facing the building, now you have lights that are gonna go face out onto the road, and that's probably something that
Okay.
definitely, headlights and stuff like that, I guess, go ahead.
That's okay. So I thought maybe we could address that part relative under number 3 as part of the landscape plan. As far as, and I don't know if that goes through engineering or if that goes through the building department, but I thought it'd be part of our final package.
Well, the final plan
Comes to you. As far as the lighting, I thought that would be part of the final engineering details. And
There's not much lighting to it.
so we would provide the foot candles, so to make sure that there's nothing that exceeds, your allowances on your property lines.
Thank goodness we don't have to worry about residential here. It isn't like we have to worry about screening as such, so landscaping, we realize you have a business to run, you need that room to make the run lot.
Thank you for being reasonable.
Sure.
As far as the driveways, we tried to show the need and demonstrate it by the truck
Yeah.
patterns.
That was good.
I know the aprons past the right of way across the property line, and it's the similar to his existing apron, now does cross our property line. It provides for a better turning movement for the 53-foot trailers if they're in there at a 75-foot radius.
Sure.
We could try to work with the neighbor to try to come up with something that's common there, but I think it's better than jumping the curbs, trying to do it right up front.
Yes.
But that's why there's larger aprons with the big sweeps. And then
Basically all trucks, right?
pretty much. And then the impervious area and the stormwater calculations, we thought that would go as part of our final engineering package, be submitted to the city.
Yeah, well, you want to make sure you talk to that engineer.
Okay.
Tell them what you're up against. All right. So conceptually, commissioners, do we have any other questions or comments? Or can we give approval to this conception?
Conceptually, we can, sure. I feel comfortable. I don't see anything we can't deal with. I make a motion to approve conceptual site plan.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. Good. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you. And thanks for increasing this part. That brought a big smile right off the back.
Good. It's been a long-term living relationship.
Yes.
Like that gentleman behind you, I had a fire alarm go off 10 o'clock at night. He used his house to go figure out where his fire in the building. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's part of it. We want to work with you. Good, good. All right.
Thank you, Joe. And ladies, thank you.
All right, next we're gonna go to the proposed fence and improvement for Vista Springs. Bill? Moving right along down there at Vista Springs.
Moving along. Could be a little faster, but
You always, right?
it's, we're going for quality now, not so much speed.
All right, we have some comments from Brian. We're gonna start with that, all right, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My memo dated September 17th regarding, this time correctly, Vista Springs ground sign and fence. Reviewed an application dated September 4th for a new monument sign. And included with that is some fencing around key areas on the property. So I only have a few comments regarding the monument sign. The area of the sign is compliant with the code. There's no issues there. And then Planning Commission has already approved the landscaping around that signage in a previous submittal, so no issue with landscaping and the aesthetics of the base around the sign. Regarding the setback, appears that that's not an issue either. So the only remaining two items then would be the fencing. In the proposal is a 8-foot tall board-on-board fence enclosure for the garbage dumpster, and see no issue with that. That's been talked about with the project in the past. And then there's a 6-foot tall decorative fencing. It looks like a wrought iron style fencing around the two courtyards adjacent to the ends of the building. Again, in my opinion, both fencing options comply with the code. The aluminum picket fencing around the courtyard seems to comply with the design standards for the town center district, but would need the city architect to weigh in on that. And I'll answer any questions the commission may have.
All right, anything from engineering or building?
The board-on-board fence with the trash enclosure is appropriate for rear yard, and with the last landscape plan had a tremendous amount of landscaping around that trash enclosure, so I don't think that's a problem. And then the aluminum wrought iron style fence is, similar to what we've asked for them to put in front of the Marketplace and Winking Lizard and Gordon
Yeah.
Food Service. It's all been the same style of fence like that, so.
Good.
Our fire inspector has.
That's right, we have to talk to that. He's been sitting there all evening waiting for his chance.
I just had the Reader's Digest version, but just a comment as a word of caution that you'll need egress gates out of those fenced-in areas. They can be access control, but we'll need a gate out of it.
Yes, sir. We have that. It was in the field sketch number 7, dated February 18th, so I forwarded that to Dennis. I'm sorry, I thought we were just looking at the quality of the fence and not the actual gate and all that, so it's on that, it's on our building plans.
All right. Any other questions or comments for this gentleman? Are we still looking at getting Halloween there?
Yeah.
Are you gonna be open, you think, October?
We're
Yeah.
still shooting for grand opening October 22nd.
Good.
We're working very hard to make that day.
I think it'll be great for council to go through there and see what that's like.
We're almost done with the bottom floor, the entrance area. We're
Okay.
doing a big octagon, over a nice fireplace.
Wow.
Very grand. So once that's done and the ceilings are finished up, we'll feel comfortable having some tours through there. And we
Can't
want
wait.
to make sure it's safe.
Can't wait. The only thing I can say to the commissioners, I've been in there in that place, so amazing. All right, any other questions or comments regarding this issue this evening? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Betcha.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Place
Ladies,
is looking
lady.
better all the time. And lady, yeah, we gotta make sure we get that in there.
Yeah, we did all the work.
She sure does.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you for
well,
your
thank you.
comments. Hey,
All right,
look
that's
forward to
it.
seeing you all at the opening too.
Oh,
If
you
can
better
make it.
believe it.
Take care. Have a good week.
With that, that's the last item this evening. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you for coming.
That's probably a good thought that, once those trucks leave the salt mine, being that salt is such a commodity, they could stop somewhere along the way.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's
And
Oh, it
dump
makes
some.
sense.
measure
Yeah,
when they come in,
make-
when they go out, to make sure he's getting what he's paying for.
Right.
Makes all sense in the world. My guess is he hasn't been. That's why he's doing what he's doing.
Well, you should go over.
Yeah.
You should go over and look.
He's getting some money.
You'll be able to
Yeah.
sell salt.
Okay.